Rebbie Jackson's advance to pop stardom emanated via 1980s Jacksonian madness with Centipede. Rebbie became the first of the Jackson sisters to achieve solo success and a gold record right away. She was no longer the most successful Jackson sister when she released Reaction in 1986. The majority of people define Jackson mania as the period in the 1970s when the Jackson 5 scored a number of pop hits and reached their commercial zenith. The Jackson 5, brothers Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Michael, were signed to the Motown label in 1969. After moving to Hollywood, they received celebrity-style PR attention, thanks to the late Motown executive Suzanne DePass. That featured a legendary beginning tale about being found by pop diva Diana Ross. Motown made a wise investment because the Jackson 5 became more than just a hit band. The brothers produced an amazing run of hit singles, beginning with the number one, I Want You Back, while appealing to a younger audience. The Jackson 5 achieved 13 top 20 hits on the Billboard charts in just 6 years, including 4 straight number one hits from 1969 to 1970 during the height of their early success. Their youthful appeal made them not only a pop music phenomenon, but also a phenomenon across multiple platforms, as they ventured into merchandise such as dolls, lunchboxes, and board games, and even featured prominently in their own Saturday morning cartoon. As the brothers grew older, their luck began to fade, just like any other teen pop group. In response, the Jackson 5 turned to variety television, as many performers in the 1970s did when they noticed a decline in record sales. The Jacksons dabbled in the kitschy genre, just like Sonny and Cher, the Osmonds, the Brady Kids, and Captain and Tennille. One notable distinction was that other celebrities than the Jackson 5 starred in the program. Their sister Janet, brother Randy, and oldest Jackson child, Rebbie, would also be joining them. The audience saw Rebbie Jackson for the first time on the variety show. The duration of the show was brief. The show's cheesy comedy sketches, cheesy musical numbers, and cheesy guest stars made it less than ideal for showcasing the talents of the talented musical family. The musical numbers were where Michael excelled the most, but the show as a whole felt like a disregarded relic. The Jackson brothers kept recording after the show's brief run ended, though there was talk of the Jackson sisters forming a trio akin to the Supremes that never happened as Janet went on to become a successful child star in sitcoms on television. Working mostly in the background, Rebbie Jackson would toil in the industry until 1984, when she signed with Columbia Records and released her debut album, Centipede. The hit song title track peaked at number 24 on the pop charts. At the height of his career, Michael Jackson wrote and produced the song, Thriller, which elevated him to the status of the world's most famous musician. All the characteristics of Michael Jackson from the early 1980s are present in their collaboration. Angular, tight beats, thick, robotic bass, dazzling synths, garish, over-the-top production, and cryptic lyrics. During the 1970s to mid-1980s, the Jackson siblings endeavored to become solo celebrities by leveraging their brother Michael's success. To varied degrees of success, Jackie, Jermaine, Marlon, Randy, LaToya, Janet, and Rebbie released solo albums between 1973 and 1987. After the Jacksons famously left Motown to join CBS, Jermaine had a successful solo career, reaching the pop and R&B charts with the Stevie Wonder-produced song, Let's Get Serious. With Centipede, Rebbie became the first of the Jackson sisters to achieve success right away, earning a gold record. Still, she had lost her status as the most successful Jackson sister by the time her sophomore album, Reaction, was released in 1986. To both critical and commercial acclaim, Janet's third album, Control, was released in February of that same year. Due to the record's success, she would become a superstar on par with Michael Jackson. It charted the trajectory of a career that would ultimately turn her into a pop icon and legend in her own right. After the release of Reaction, Rebbie Jackson was left with the additional challenge of attempting to overcome Janet's shadow in addition to the looming shadow of Reaction without thinking of Michael's 1987 album Bad or Janet's Control. While Rebbie's album lacks the inventiveness and audacity of her siblings, it does have elements of the dance pop and urban pop sounds of the time. Sometimes people refer to Rebbie Jackson as the Jackson sister who could actually sing. This unfair bit of sarcasm contrasts Jackson's powerful voice with Janet and LaToya's lighter, airier coos. Rebbie Jackson seems to have a stronger voice than her more well-known sisters, even though she lacks the multi-octave, leather-lunged power of Patti LaBelle or Aretha Franklin. On vinyl, Janet and LaToya sound beautiful, but their performance tends to be more like breathy, lovely crooning, whereas Rebbie seems more at ease singing louder and less polite. That doesn't mean that when Jackson sings, fans won't recognize some of her signature sounds. She shares some vocal quirks and nuances with her well-known siblings, which are evident on most Jackson records. She has feathery vibrato, clipped, sharp phrasing, and a penchant for unplanned whoops and squeals. Upon its release, Reaction did not perform as well on the charts as its predecessor, and none of the singles achieved significant success. Its prospects of success appeared to be smothered by Janet's incredible victory with Control. It's obvious that Control is the superior album, despite the fact that Janet is undoubtedly the lighter vocalist. Comparing the two would be unfair. Featuring a tight group of musicians who grew up on the Minneapolis sound, Control is a groundbreaking record that combines dance, pop, funk, disco, soul, and synth. A large portion of the material on the album was written by Janet, and it told a story. It had a storyline, which Janet would develop in her follow-ups. Control is more ambitious than Reaction. Rather, it's a simple, functional dance pop album that fulfills every expectation for a dance pop record from the middle of the 1980s. The album is fairly dated given its hedonistic use of studio tricks like robotic drum machines, metallic synthesizers, and trendy pop flourishes. It was released in 1986. Additionally, the album has a certain blankness to it because Jackson's brother Tito produced a few tracks but did not write or produce the album. The sounds that accompany a singer's vocals are just as important as the singer herself because most dance pop is producer-driven. In fact, they may even be more so. For this reason, singers who weren't especially strong vocalists, like Madonna, Paula Abdul, Kylie Minogue, and Janet Jackson, are among the most important dance pop performers of the last few decades. Yes, huge lunge divas with successful dance music recordings include Martha Wash, Donna Summer, and Whitney Houston. However, their songs weren't always superior to those of their peers with lighter voices. Dance pop is often, and unjustly, written off as fake or manufactured, in part because of this emphasis on production. Popular music purists believe that meaningful music must be authentic, and dance pop's dependence on technology seems to go against this quest for reality. It's an absurd criticism that is partly driven by the macho swagger of real music, such as rock and roll, which embraces a different aesthetic than pop music led by women. Therefore, the weaker song selection in Reaction will contribute to its inferiority when compared to Control or Bad. Thus, Reaction's muted response felt a little out of Jackson's control, given the producer's excessive influence over the success or failure of dance music, both critically and commercially. On this collection of good, if not amazing, songs, she does what she does best, which is deliver fantastic, captivating performances. The majority of the album's work is accomplished through clever studio tricks, so the songs don't put too much pressure on her. The record is laden with musical flourishes, with vivid, flamboyant synths popping and yelling like fireworks everywhere. This indicates that the record is nearly instantaneous. Pros are the producers who agreed to collaborate with Jackson. Among them is the talented musician Reggie Lucas, who contributed to some of Madonna's most notable early compositions. Vassal Bedford, Howie Rice, a well-known urban pop producer, and Tito, a member of the Jackson 5, are also included. An amazing lineup that provides mediocre to good support for a fantastic chunky title track, which features multi-layered vocals that hastily spell out the word reaction. Loud keyboards and synths accompany the relentless pounding of a thick bass. Jackson performs with a fair amount of emotion, particularly in the chorus when she belts out a wonderful soul song. The song has the makings of a catchy pop song, but the instrumentation is so busy that not much of it makes sense. It's a clear sign that the album as a whole suffers from overproduction. Ain't No Way to Love, which was co-written by Tito Jackson and Vassal Benford with Philip Bailey, is a good song that, like Reaction, is ruined by needless artificial frippery. The song begins with synth pipes that obliquely mimic Native American panpipes. This is followed by the bass-heavy instrumentation that makes up the majority of the song. Once more, Rebbie Jackson has impeccable vocals. She is a talented vocalist who, to her credit, doesn't sound forced by the hectic production. One of the better songs on Reaction is Ticket to Love, which was produced by Howie Rice, a successful studio musician who wrote pop songs for the Pointer Sisters, Patti LaBelle, and the Commodores. Like the rest of the album, it's still dated, but not overtly so. The use of synths, keyboards, and drum machines is still prevalent, but it's done so skillfully, though I won't say economically. In his song, Jackson also has a lot of appeal. She's endearing and brash. You Don't Know What You're Missing, the other Rice production, is a lively, enjoyable pop song that is once more drenched in gloss and sheen. Despite the heavy production, the song has an unexpected lightness to it, and the chorus is extremely catchy. It sounds a lot like what Patti LaBelle or Aretha Franklin would have made into a huge pop hit at the time. If Jackson had collaborated with Rice only, it might have made more sense, considering how excellent the songs were. The man behind Madonna's self-titled debut record, Reggie Lucas, is the other well-known collaborator. It is reasonable to assume that he would have contributed the lively, witty, and streetwise attitude he contributed to iconic post-disco hits like Lucky Star and Burning Up. And part of that 80s New York attitude is captured in the strutting funk of "If you don't call, you don't care." A few of the accents sound like they were taken straight out of Lucky Star. However, the sounds he produced for divas like Jocelyn Brown and Stephanie Mills are more distinctive and modern than his work on Reaction. Lessons in the Fine Art of Love, his other dance song, has an 80s dance pop feel to it. The peculiar duet You Send the Rain Away, which paired Jackson with Cheap Trick singer Robin Zander, is his most puzzling contribution to the album. The pop ballad demonstrates how mismatched the two vocalists are, even though Jackson seems much more at ease in the S/C ballad context. The other well-known duet on the album features the renowned Oscar-winning soul singer Isaac Hayes. It is odd to have a well-known performer like Hayes on the record, but it does create a memorable moment. Produced by Tito Jackson and Vassal Benford, the seductive simmering track highlights the subtle contrast between the incredibly smooth and sleek production and Hayes' gritty, deep, rumbling voice, giving the impression of rough sandpaper on glassy silk. Rebbie Jackson's nimble, tremulous voice nicely pounces around Hayes' excellent performance on this song. Reaction did not place on the Billboard Top 200 when it was released, but it did place admirably at number 54 on the R&B charts. The album sadly faded into the broader soundscape of 80s urban dance pop, but the singles did better. The title track reached the top 20 on the R&B charts. She would release 1988's Are You Tough Enough, which was a top 10 R&B hit, after Reaction. After that, she took a long break and didn't record again until 1998, when she returned on Michael Jackson's Vanity label. A decent attempt was made to modernize her sound for mid-1990s smooth soul with the album Yours Faithfully. Her voice was still startlingly beautiful. However, the resurgence was fleeting, and following Yours Faithfully, she continued to have a low profile, appearing only in live shows at benefit events and showcases and releasing no new music. She stayed under the radar during her brother Michael's health and legal troubles, appearing in interviews following his untimely death in 2009. Even though she was reluctant to enter the public eye, her son Austin Brown joined the family business and eventually became a singer-songwriter. Rebbie Jackson doesn't seem to be as motivated or determined to carve out a career that is entirely separate from that of her well-known family as her siblings are. Despite being associated with three of the most remarkable pop acts of the last 50 years, she appears unfazed and happy.